Okay, you all have the text. So I'm going to ask Terry, would you begin reading for us? Let me just get it myself. Yeah, please go ahead. We don't hear you. I think you're muted.
Sorry.
Oh, now we hear you.
Yeah. Light is Torah. Happiness are the festivals. Joy is circumcision. And prestige are the tefillin.
Okay, so the first quote you just read on the page, to the Jews was light, happiness, joy, and prestige, or honor. Now that's a direct quote from the Megillah. You can see it's Esther chapter 8, verse 16. And just want you to know that verse, this beautiful description of the aftermath of Purim is so significant that we quote it every week. Every week we make the Havdalah service. In the Havdalah service, after Shabbat, we all say together, all those present, when the Havdalah is being made, say in unison together, this verse, that's how significant is this description of the celebration of the eternity of the Jewish people, light, happiness, joy, and prestige. And the Talmud says, in addition to its simple meaning, light, happiness, joy, and honor, the Talmud says, we don't go into it here, but the Talmud goes into the examining the nature of the words and drawing association with other verses elsewhere in Scripture. Talmud concludes that there's a deeper allusion here, that light, all these four descriptions refer to four different dimensions or components. Light is Torah, happiness is Yom Tov, joy is Milah, circumcision, and kavod, honor or prestige, are the tefillin. Now, the commentary. Please continue. Thanks.
Purim is about being different. Haman complained to King Ahasuerus that there exists a singular nation scattered and divided among the nations in all the provinces of your kingdom, whose laws are different from those of all nations. A singular nation, Ahasuerus agreed, different and unique despite their dispersion, cannot be tolerated. He concurred with Haman that it is not worth that the king let them be. It must be decreed that they be destroyed.
All right. So Haman is saying, actually, if you look carefully at his words, there's some tension here, kind of almost a contradiction. He says there are singular people and they're scattered. What he's saying is, you would think, we would have expected that any people that live in the king's realm, scattered, will eventually do what everybody ought to do, and that is assimilate. They've been here long enough, and the king's realm, mind you, embraced 127 provinces. There were many different kinds of cultures, so they should have assimilated at least in some of them, if not all of them, and yet they retained their singularity despite being in these various cultures. This is a dangerous people. They're just not being absorbed. So there's a fundamental disloyalty, says Haman to the king, a fifth column, as it were. And if, not that they're a threat per se, they have no designs on overthrowing the king. But if the king, the realm would be threatened by an invading force, we don't know where their allegiance would be, because they have not adopted Persian culture. Externally, perhaps, but they remain fundamentally different. So they're a cancer, and they have to be destroyed. And Haman devises the first final solution, which, as I've mentioned many times, the Nazis emulated in their final solution. But that's a story for another time. What's our response? Our response, some argued clearly, Some argued, yeah, Haman's right. We better drop our trappings of being different. If we want to end anti-Semitism, we've got to be like everybody else. Look what Haman is saying. We're different. That's the problem. So if we will be like everybody else, all will be good in the world. Let's intensify our absorption in the great melting pot. That's what some argued. Now, I'm not going to go into a history lesson now. Wherever that was tried, it backfired terribly. Terribly. The opposite was the result. It was swift and terrible anti-Semitic response where Jews tried to be like their host countries. The end, the Jews, they tried it actually, but they learned their lesson. And the end, next paragraph, the Jewish response. The Jewish response, yeah.
The Jewish response to Haman's decree was to intensify their singularity. Instead of continuing the assimilationist trends that began with their exile from the Holy Land 3 generations earlier, they rallied under the leadership of Mordechai with a renewed commitment to their uniqueness as God's people.
Yeah, he's making a long story very short, but in the end, the initial response was assimilation. That's what led to all of this. This will be the answer. When they realize it's inspired by Esther, but through Mordechai, on the contrary, to assert our uniqueness, and then we'll be respected and saved for that matter, which is what happened. Okay, continue.
After relating the story of Haman's downfall and Israel's victory, the book of Esther sums up the miracle of Purim in one sentence. And to the Jews was light, happiness, joy, and prestige. The Talmud interprets these words as a reference to the 4 primary distinguishing features of the Jewish people: the Torah, the festivals, circumcision, and tefillin. There are, of course, 613 mitzvot and numerous principles, laws, and customs that comprise the Jewish faith, but these 4 are singled out as the exemplars of Jewish singularity.
All right, so that's what this talk is going to explain, why these 4 things. Of all the ways to celebrate our Jewish identity, hinted to in these words of light, happiness, joy, and honor. I like the word honor better, or prestige, it's fine. The Talmud says it refers specifically also, aside from its general meaning, to these 4 mitzvahs, namely Yom Tov and the Bris, Torah, Yom Tov, the Bris, and Tefillin. Why these 4? Before we go into these 4, I just want to emphasize again, the final description here, covered, prestige or honor, that's critical. The Jews, after the story of Purim and the destruction of their enemies, the end was not just tolerance, which is a very, I must say, it's a very insulting word. I tolerate you. Tolerate? Notwithstanding your difference and insignificance, I tolerate you? No, tolerance, God forbid. Can't be tolerance. I've got to be, I respect you. I respect and understand and appreciate your unique role in God's world. They don't want to tolerate other people. You want to embrace and respect them. So here too, we see this at the end of the story of Purim. It wasn't that the Jews were tolerated, but prestige, they were respected. And the message is we're respected when we assert our difference. Paradoxically, because as much as we try to deny it, no one's going to buy it. On the contrary, the more we try to deny our difference, the less credible and the more suspicious and the more unnerving we become. So the end was honor. But our talk wants to focus on, of all of the 4 symbolisms or mitzvahs of Judaism, why these 4? Thank you, Terry. Now I'm going to ask, such a wonderful array of readers. What do we have here? Robert, are you on? Robert Burke, I don't see it. Are you on the? You're not there? Nope. Okay, he was at the earlier class this morning. Peggy.
Robert's there.
There's 2 Roberts. There's 2.
Robert Burke is there.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, Robert.
But Peggy can read.
You both will. There's lots of text.
Okay,
So Peggy first and then Robert.
no problem.
Okay. After relating, where are we?
Distinguishing similarities, the second,
Distinguishing similarities.
yeah.
On the face of it, it would seem that the very opposite is the case, that these four precepts actually reflect Israel's similarity to other nations. Scholarship is not unique to the Jews. Virtually every community and culture has its creed and philosophy, a canon of writings on which they are based, and an army of scholars and jurists to study, interpret, and apply it. Furthermore, even the Torah qua Torah is not confined to the people of Israel. Several faiths are based on it, including two that embrace half the human race.
Which actually more than half. And that would be, of course, Christianity and Islam.
Mhm.
All right.
Even some of the specifically Jewish expositions on Torah, such as the Talmud, the writing of Maimonides, or the teachings of Kabbalah, are universally known and studied.
So the Rebbe is asking a question. If we want to bring out our difference in the celebration of our singularity, why these four? He's going through each of the four items, and the Rebbe is saying that's not so unique to us. There are other mitzvahs that really would set us apart. Now, Torah, we're not the only people that has a canon, that has philosophy, that has teachings and scholars. This isn't unique to the Jewish people. And moreover, even the Torah itself. It's learned and studied widely. Even Kabbalah today is all the rage. So why singled out Torah as something uniquely Jewish? All right, it comes from the Jews, but you could surely, there are other mitzvahs that there is no equal or similar ritual elsewhere. So why this one? And he's going to go through all of the four and ask, but these things are universal. Why these four? And then go deeper. Aha, that's the point. Others have it too, but Jews have it in a unique way, which we will presently see. So continue now as we examine the next of the four items, Yom Tov, festivals. Please continue, Peggy.
Festivals are also a common feature of all societies. It is true that only Jews eat matzah on Passover and sound the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, but the concept of a festival or a date designated for commemoration and observance is universal. Every nation, culture, and religion has its calendar of dates that mark the historical events that forged them, and commemorates these dates with appropriate rituals and customs.
Right, so the question is on item number 2. The Jews had festivals. Okay, but so does everybody else. Why note that as something singular? Now tefillin, continue.
The same is true of tefillin. Only the Jew binds these leather boxes and straps on his arm and head as the symbol of his commitment to God. But again, the concept is a universal one. The married woman's ring, the soldier's uniform, the Indian chief's headdress. All these are signs worn as demonstrations of one's allegiance to a certain group or cause. As for circumcision, it is a fairly common procedure, practiced by many for health and other reasons.
So we've gone through all four, and the Rebbe is asking, no, they're beautiful, but they're not unique. The concept isn't unique to the Jewish people. So why is this singled out? And yet, continue.
And yet, Torah, the festivals, circumcision, and tefillin, or as the book of Esther refers to them, light, happiness, joy, and prestige, are the cornerstones of Jewish distinction. True, other nations and societies have similar or virtually identical elements in their doctrine and lifestyle, but the Jewish experience of these self-same elements is different from, even antithetical to, their universal counterparts. For this is the ultimate mark of distinction, how one differs from his fellows, not in those areas in which he is obviously different, but in those areas in which he is externally similar, but internally worlds apart.
So what we're going to learn now is that on the contrary, if you want to bring out distinction, it's expressed in a much deeper way in those areas where there's common ground. Even here, there's a difference. So if we're looking for Purim being different, and that's what it is, the Jews assert their unique role in the world, recognizing that the world wants to see this, wants us to embrace openly our difference. We're going to look for a difference that is so profound and so unique that it's present even in those areas where there is similarity. Hence, we're going to now explore that these four components, although the world also possesses them in similar fashion on some level, nonetheless, the Jew has something unique to contribute to even where all things appear to be the same. Let's see how. So by divine providence, okay, so Robert, you're going to read the female wisdom, which is good because we need to learn this. We meaning the guys. Female wisdom, how does this come into the picture? Read, go ahead.
Okay, I was just thinking, why isn't Shabbat one of those four?
Yeah, why isn't Shabbat? Yeah, because that is really an obvious, they have their Sunday, they have their day of rest.
But it came from us.
Everything comes from us. But you want to bring out something. In the truth, Shabbat could be, you're right, it's similar, but that Jewishly it's different. I don't know, maybe, I don't know, good question. And maybe at the end of our discussion, someone can suggest an answer why Shabbat is not chosen. Okay. I have a little answer, but let's wait till the end. Good question.
Okay. Feminine wisdom.
Yeah, you have a different text likely than mine. Mine is a more updated one. It's interesting how they change certain words to, anyway, but you have like an older text. I got a book to publish later. Go ahead.
Feminine wisdom. How does the Jews' Torah differ from the universal concept of learning and scholarship? The key lies in the book of Esther's choice of the Hebrew word ora, which is the feminine form of or, light, as a reference to Torah.
Question, all right? So the verse reads, unto the Jews there was light. Now in Hebrew, like in French and other languages, there's masculine and feminine. So the masculine form for light is or, the feminine form is ora. Why is the feminine form used here? Torah is classically referred to as, in the masculine, Torah or, the Torah of light, using the masculine. Here it's the feminine. Why? Continue.
All wisdom whose function is to illuminate and enlighten is light, but there is masculine light and feminine light. Masculine light is self-generated, original and aggressive.
Oi, okay.
Feminine light is receptive. Masculine intellect is the mind exploring the unknown, originating new ideas, debunking old misconceptions. Feminine intellect is the mind opening itself to receive from a higher source, ingesting a seed of revealed wisdom and developing the myriad of details and applications inherent within it.
Okay, this is a big statement that needs somewhat some elaboration. Number one, let's remind ourselves that in Judaism, there's no such thing as men and women. How's that for a shocking statement? What do I mean by that? We are all multi-gender, we're multisexual, and moreover, each human being is a microcosm of the world at large, or the universe, which means we're also animals, we're also plants, we're also stardust. The human being is a composite. We are all a microcosm of all of existence. So that means male have feminine attributes and women have male attributes. It's a question of what is the overarching or the dominant attribute. So when Torah speaks of men and women, we don't mean it in absolute terms of absolute differences. There are none. It's a question of the dominant trait, which obviously therefore explains why some men can have a stronger feminine component than others, and some women will have a stronger masculine component than other women. And there's endless variations on this. You can have very masculine women and very feminine men. Although biologically, this is a man, this is a woman. That's a biological fact. But the whole orientation, etc., is not black and white, and not supposed to be. You're not supposed to. Why did God make us this way? Well, that's a good question, which is not our subject right now. We've talked about it many times, but I'm just going to say this. In the male and female union, it's not merely a question of the male brings the male, the female brings the female, and they become whole that way, each bringing different dimension to their wholeness. It's much more subtle and deeper than that. There's a lot of sameness in each other that each one ought to touch and evoke. This union of heart and mind and body is not simply male and female. It's much more complex than that, much more nuanced. From the animal within to the feminine within the male and the male within the feminine, and that's how it's supposed to be. So when we say now, that was just kind of an aside, but an important caveat or context for our discussion. When we're talking about the difference between male wisdom and female wisdom, we're talking about really those components within the male and female. But I mean to separate them in black and white terms. Many women can be creative and are, that's the male component, and many men can have this receptive and developing, intellectually nurturing ability. But that's the feminine component. Now, when the feminine component, which is what we're zeroing in here, we're zeroing on in here. Makes sense? Because we're using the feminine, the Megillah uses the feminine. It's not Torah or in the end of Purim. It's aura. It's as in aura. The feminine, what we're emphasizing here is the feminine component of Torah. Which is what exactly? Let's continue.
Torah study employs both the masculine and feminine functions of the mind, but the greater defining emphasis is on the feminine. Indeed, for all its Talmudic hair-splitting, Torah is not about intellect at all. The intellect is but a garment, a medium by which to convey the super-rational essence it encloses. To study Torah first, to study Torah is, first and foremost, to surrender to a revelation of divine truth, to make one's mind a receptacle for the wisdom and will of God. The mind of the Torah sage is not a generator of ideas, but a womb that receives the divine truth and then develops it as a rationally structured principle or law.
Let me elaborate a little bit. So the Torah has a masculine and feminine component. First and foremost, by that we mean the written law is the masculine. The oral law, which means Talmud, Midrash, the entire ever-expanding knowledge, which all falls under the umbrella of the oral law, because it was not dictated by God, we develop, that's the feminine. All right? So the written law is masculine. The written law, friends, is cut and dry and seminal. It's very brief and terse. God dictates, no more, no less. That's the masculine role. The masculine, and it's the original idea, as it were. God's communicating his will or his wisdom. But it's communicated in such a way that we don't know what he wants. You read the written law, you have no clue how to keep Shabbos or do anything. The oral law is man develops, the sages, that's the feminine. We are the feminine. What I'm saying here is, by the way, all human beings are fundamentally feminine. Yes, we're all, the fetus is feminine. The male chromosomes only emerge X amount of days after conception. We're all born feminine because spiritually, that's with God, the marriage, he's predominantly male, we're predominantly female, although there's also the feminine in God as well. It all gets very complex and intentionally, because it's all interwoven. Nothing is black and white, it's all oneness. So oneness means integration on every level. It can be confusing, but really on the contrary, it's expressive of the oneness of it all. There's no black and white, everything's integrated. Back to Torah. So Torah, just for our purposes here, overall, is the masculine, the written law, and the oral law, the Talmud, the Midrash, the Kabbalah, it's all feminine. So here's the thing. So you see, the Torah law is very cut and dry, it's seminal and brief. The oral law is textured and layered and insight and nuance. That's the feminine dimension. Now here's the thing. It's only through the oral law, because what does it do? The oral law is the sage is receiving. Here's the written law we're receiving, but we're developing. We're developing its depth and really discovering the divine. As he says here very briefly, the oral law is much more than intellectual pursuit and development. It goes beyond that. It's really discovering the true essential divinity in Torah, which is lost, not seen in the written law. We don't understand what it means. We treat it with reverence, but we really don't appreciate what it means. It's only in the Kabbalah and the Talmud, in the Midrash, that the soul of Torah emerges. And it's an ongoing process, like wine. Deeper, wine's a feminine thing, matzah's a male thing. We spoke about this once. Cut and dry, done, rules, finished, next. Chick-chack, in the oven, out, matzah. Done, over, he moves on. Feminine, it's wine, it's deep. It's not get it over and done with. It's about a relationship. It's the wine. It's a whole different story. Wine is feminine. Matzah is masculine. All right. It's another different model for this. The written law is masculine, which is why in the synagogue, the shul, it's a male club, not denying it. He takes out the Torah. It's all a masculine thing. He reads it, puts it back, closes the ark. Let's go to the Kiddush. Done. Over. Did it. Discharge my obligation quick as possible. Drag this out. Get this done. And goodbye. But the feminine dimension of Torah not put in the ark and not closed behind the cover and locked under lock and key. It's an ongoing, developing relationship, revealing the depth, the soul of Torah. Okay, I hope I gave some sense of what he's trying to convey. This requires more elaboration, but I think you're getting a sense, or I hope you are. Let's remember that the Megillah talks about not the masculine dimension, but the feminine dimension. Not or, but aura. Now let's talk about the Yom Tov. Thank you, Robert. Elza, would you read for us? Do you have the text in front of you?
Yeah, sorry, I don't have it in front of me. But if I'll read next, I'll have it by then.
Okay, so you'll listen. All right then. You see, my problem is I cannot access all the names of people that are on. I don't know why. It's a simple process, no doubt. I'm just not able to do it.
Okay, I have it.
You found it? It's a miracle. I don't hear you. You're on mute. You're on mute, Elza. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, I had to go back to the screen. We're on
The present past.
and past. Yeah. Okay, the present past. The universal function of the festival or holiday is to celebrate and commemorate the past. The function of the Jewish festival is to re-experience the past, or rather, to unearth the timeless essence of a past event that makes it real to everyone's present existence.
Okay, huge statement just said. His question was, why are we talking about Yom Tov as a distinguishing expression of the uniquely Jewish identity when everybody else has holidays as well? Answer, there's a big difference. What's the big difference? In every other holiday, we are commemorating an important event in the past. That's logical. That's what the holiday is. The founding of the state, or whatever events are significant in that particular culture and society, they have days commemorating these important events in the formation of their particular state or society, religion or culture. Not so Judaism. No. Our holidays are meant not just to celebrate an important event in the past, but we're actually saying it's happening now. That doesn't make any sense. It's not happening now. It happened in the past. But it is. For us, it is. It does happen. Because we are connected to a place that is beyond time. Beyond time. And therefore, Purim is not just an old story, a beautiful old story, or Pesach, or whatever Yontif. It's actually, literally, spiritually happening now. That's uniquely Jewish. Let's continue.
Says, the Jew does not merely remember the Exodus on Passover, though his observance of Passover's divinely ordained mitzvah, he accesses the divine gift of freedom that the Exodus is, thereby...
Not though, through his observance.
Oh,
through the observance, what happens? She accesses the divine gift of freedom that the Exodus is. Now, thereby, continue.
Thereby achieving a personal exodus, a liberation from the constraints that enslave his own life. The same is true of the giving of the Torah on Shavuos, the attaining of forgiveness on Yom Kippur, and so on. The Jewish festival is a timeless window of time, making past events accessible and realizable.
In simple language, but this is beyond time. As you all know, if you've been in MTC, just to cite an example, on Shavuos, we have all the children come to be there when the 10 Commandments are read. And you know why? It's not because once upon a time, God gave the Torah and let's remember it. It's because now God is giving the Torah a new, deeper, this is something he doesn't say here now, and I'll tell you. It's not simply, this is the most amazing part, that we are celebrating Pesach and it's happening again, spiritually, freedom, transcending boundaries, or Shavuos, God giving the Torah anew, much more than that, deeper than ever before. God is opening up the wisdom, his own wisdom, to us every year Shavuot, vistas of knowledge that can be grasped by us, unavailable, unattainable in last year or years bygone. Not only is it happening again, it's happening deeper. And the personal exodus, for example, that you experienced last Passover or yesterday, because it should be an ongoing process, this Passover of a totally new order. So not only is it current, it's deeper. Purim this year is much more than it ever was in history. Not remembering the lessons and applying it. No. Real in real time now. What does this mean? We're living in time, it happened past, but was. We're saying no. That's for the rest of the world. For us, there's no there was. It's infinite, it's timeless. The soul, unique to the Jew, and that's our mission, is to bring this timelessness to the world. That's what chosen means. We have to reveal this infinite godliness to the world.
Rabbi New, it's 11 o'clock.
Right, I was going to say that.
It's 11. No,
it's 10:59.
We have 1 minute to go.
Okay.
Less than that.
But you know what? Get up your texts, because we sent the email, right? I hope you got it again. No, she didn't send it. Oh, yeah. Okay, showing. We should give tzedakah. You can give tzedakah. Give tzedakah.
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock right now, Rabbi New.
Yep. So we're going to say it now. I don't have the text in front of me. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's read it together, friends. So we're going to say the God Hashem's name properly. Okay, I don't have any. If you have a coin, just put it on the table and you give it later to the bar. Put it in your tzedakah box. Just dedicate it, or whatever amount. Ribono shel olam, master together, master of the universe. We're saying it together, folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Master of the universe.
We together.
We the entire nation are united in praying to
you for the redemption.
For the redemption and all the suffering.
All the suffering. The
sickness, the dying, the wars, the discord, causing all problems.
Grant
us Mashiach now, and the prophecy of God will be fulfilled. Shema Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad.
Father, it's enough.
Father, it's enough already. Have mercy on us and send us Mashiach now.
Now. Amen. Okay, let's continue in the text. Robert, you were reading, no? Who was reading?
No, I was.
Elza, continue, yeah.
You can hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, sorry. I just closed it up. I'm sorry, I lost it. I have to go back to my screen.
Okay.
Here. A festival is a happy occasion, but again, the happiness experienced by the Jew, while superficially similar to the happiness of a non-Jew celebrant, is radically different. To the non-Jewish celebrant, a festival is an escape. Immersing himself in a joyous and rosy past, he can safely discard the trouble and responsibility burdened present. Little wonder that holidays inevitably include lavish spending, moral laxity, and barroom brawls.
Okay,
Barroom
I want to tell you my text, which is updated. The author, bless him, changed the word from often, inevitable to often. It's not always the case, thank God. And sometimes celebrations are as they should be, learning from the past and inspirational. But I want to tell you that New Year's parties, for the most, are not. So, but the Jewish New Year, to cite an example, Rosh Hashanah is a very different kind of celebration, not only because it's contained and it's spiritual and it's responsible. That's not the point that he's making. The point he's trying to make is it's a connection to a transcendent, infinite place that's current and immediate and now. Continue, the Jew
also transcends the present on his festivals. And for him, too, this is a source of joy. But his is not an escapist joy. On the contrary,
by the way, here too, the author, he dropped the his and put this. You make it more universal. Yeah. I like this. I appreciate the editing.
Yeah. On the contrary, it is the joy of penetrating to the essence of his present day, of their present day self.
One's presence.
One's. To discover the timeless self within. So theirs,
festival.
The Jewish festival is a disciplined joy, a joy that shatters external barriers while amplifying internal focus. The Jewish joy that makes them more responsible, more caring, more committed.
Okay, keep on going.
The holiday on which the distinction of Jewish festival celebration most vividly comes to light is Purim. On Purim, the Jew is commanded to drink until he cannot distinguish between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. Drinking, especially drinking to the point of irrationality, is generally anathema to the Jew. It is on Purim that we are accorded the rare sight of a drunk Jew. And the Purim drunk is a sight worthy of beholding, emotionally uninhibited, yet morally controlled, rationally incoherent, yet spiritually pure.
Okay, so let me just comment on this. To be perfectly honest, that's a terrible thing to say. I wasn't honest till now. No, I don't mean to say that. I mean to be...
candid?
I guess candid is a better word. Being drunk on Purim is not for everyone. It really isn't. It's a theoretical kind of thing, and the Rebbe, I mean, we have abused it. Many have abused it, but I just want to explain what it's supposed to be. And if someone is incapable, then they should not be engaged in it. Let me explain. On Purim, as we all know, a person is obligated at one time of the year, is this strange obligation to drink to the point of intoxication, where one cannot distinguish between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. on the face of this is absurd. Not just absurd, it runs counter to everything Judaism stands for, which is cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. So what does it mean? It doesn't mean what it appears to mean. Nothing on Purim is what it appears to be. That's why we wear masks. This is what it means. It means that on Purim, a person is to transcend the morality, which means the logical. Haman is ugly. Feh. Mordechai is beautiful. Blessed. I can understand and see that. We are to transcend my prejudice, a good prejudice, a healthy prejudice. Morality is beautiful, immorality is ugly. But that's a prejudice. That's my conception. Makes sense to me. On Purim, we have to transcend that. And in that state of transcendence, to say and declare, ugly, beautiful. Blessed be Mordechai, cursed be Haman. To make it graphic, it's as if this is what he's sitting at he or she, sitting at their Purim meal, having drunk the wine, and fallen asleep, intoxicated. And you push her shoulder, and you say, Mordechai. And he says, blessed. And you push his shoulder again, and he's still intoxicated. And you say, Haman. And he goes, cursed. Or you say, rephrase that. You say, mitzvahs to him. And he goes, Baruch Hashem. And you say, transgression to him. And he says, God forbid. Where's it coming from? Rationale. He's not rational now. But that's the point. Having transcended rationality, from this deep place of faith, of beyond reason, she affirms and declares right and wrong, not because of its relative morality, meaning to say the human construct, the human value. This is destructive, this is beautiful, this is ugly. No, it's because it's essentially divine and eternal. So in summary, what this point is that for the Jew, what's good and what's bad is not because this is moral and that's immoral. Because mind you, that can be debated forever. Nazis believed intellectually, because it was based on the the science of the day. They believed in evolution. The whole foundation of Nazism is evolution. Science. Evolution continues in the human race. It's based on Darwinism. And the Aryan race is the superior race. And the other races, that's their destiny, to be consumed by the fittest, the survival of the fittest. So eventually the other races will be consumed. The Jews got to be destroyed. Why must the Jew be destroyed? What was this irrational obsession with Hitler, with the Jews? Because the Jew is saying that every life is sacred and equal. You fool, says Hitler. It's not equal. There's the law of the jungle. It's survival. It's evolution. And you're holding back. Listen to his words. If you want to read his speeches, you should. We should know what we're remembering. The Jew is holding back the advance of civilization with the insistence that every human being is made in the image of God and equally and infinitely precious. Not so. The superior is superior and the inferior is inferior. The black's inferior, the gypsy is inferior, the Pole is inferior. The Jew is not just inferior. The Jew is the cancer that is not allowing the advance of civilization and must be destroyed for the betterment of mankind. He called himself the Messiah. He's going to redeem the world of the Jew, finally allowing it to advance. With the Aryan race will be ultimately the only unique race and only one, as evolution demands. That's life, that's science, this is logic. Things evolve. So what I'm telling you is that he believes sincerely based on science. Nobody believed with science. The world believed, still does to largely, that this is truth, is that he's the redeemer of humanity. The ultimate good. But for the Jew, what's good is what's godly. It isn't about being a mensch. It isn't about being good. It's about being godly. Bring godliness to goodness, and then goodness becomes true. If the good is godly. So that's the point. He's intoxicated. He's gone beyond this whole rationale. He's gone beyond this whole understanding. Things that we can appreciate and see in logic. And in that state, he cries out, Abdullah Yada. He's gone beyond knowledge. And from there he says, blessed be Mordechai and cursed be Haman, for so is the divine will. That's uniquely Jewish, friends. That's uniquely Jewish. So there's 2 points he's saying here. Not only is our celebration, not quite the celebration, the new year of the rest of the world. Not quite. But beyond that, pointing here to a transcendent, infinite spirituality. There are truths that are eternal and never change, no matter what the popular opinion is, whether it's communism, socialism, or Nazism. The rage that millions bought into, swore allegiance to. The Jew is not impressed. There's eternal truths. And even when he doesn't have the answer, the explanation, he's intoxicated. He still declares that truth because that's not where it comes from, within him or her. It comes from the soul, comes from the Torah, comes from the divine. So that's the deeper meaning. So that's why I said before, if God forbid a person gets intoxicated on Purim and becomes like every other drunk, then God forbid. It's being abused, no question about it. You know what? I'm going to conclude. I have to leave now, continue next week. But this is an amazing thing of all things in Lubavitch, but I'm telling you. But the Rebbe's Fabrengen, nobody got drunk. You know what would happen? Thousands of people. Thousands. The Rebbe would say one person should represent everybody and take upon himself to say l'chaim. And so one person, a crowd of thousands of people, would have that l'chaim. And another one, whatever it is, and make a somersault and so on. And the mind, boom. But this is a person lying on the sitting slumped in the chair. And you give him a knack. And you say to him, Mordechai. And he says, Amen. And you tell him, Haman. And he goes, where's this coming from? The depth of the neshama that goes beyond morality and logic and philosophy and rational and the rational mind, which God forbid can justify anything, and has and will continue to. So that is unique to our simcha. I'm sorry, I need to go. You can read the rest of the text yourself. He goes through the circumcision. We went through Torah. We did Torah, right? We did Yontif. We have to do tefillin and circumcision to explain why. The whole point. Superficially, everybody does this, but probe a little bit deeper and you see the unique contribution. And I want to conclude. It's not like we're different and better than you. This is not the point here. The point is to affirm what our mission is. This is our mission, to bring this godliness to the world. You have your Torah and you have your holidays and you have your tefillin and you even have your circumcision, which he explains, read the text later. Our job is to bring the sanctity to it, the eternity to it, the godliness to it. The eternal people have to bring, that's our mission, chosen the eternal God to a waiting, exhausted, confused world. And never like the present. Never like the present is the world open and ready for our message. Never. Such confusion, and people are fed up already and don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And we're promised that promises have to be vain and empty. And we don't even know, have we conquered it? We have not conquered it. It's a new strain. Is it worse? Is it better? All of this uncertainty, which points to the fragility of life. Who would have imagined contemporary science, a tiny little microbe? All of the scientific minds and discoveries in the world just can't conquer it. and it's transformed the world. How fragile are we? And therefore, we are so open to godliness, to Hashem, to eternal truths, to suffuse our world and heal it and bring true light and joy and celebration and respect. Friends, please read ahead. I'm sorry, I need to go to my next appointment. And we got the gist of it. You can carry this through. And of course, self-explanatory. And you'll get the answers to the other remaining items. Meanwhile, have a wonderful day. May Hashem heard our prayers that we just said together and bring the redemption. And we'll celebrate Purim in fine style. Everybody then will be at the level, no problem, to be Ad L'Yada. We'll all be at that level in the most exquisite and joyous way. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you,
Amen.
Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Rabbi.
Thank you. Have a great
Have
week.
a great
Bye.
day.
Good.
Thank you, Rabbi.